Welcome to the most fantastic channel in the world. Today we are going to present a podcast about anatomical terms, body tissues, skeletal muscular system, negative feedback systems, an analysis of the risk factors to develop skin cancer and osteoporosis, and a plan of activities to prevent chronic disease in the future. I am going to talk you about the anatomical terms. First, we start with the anatomical position, which is one of the most important. This position starts with the person standing erect, looking forward. The feet are flat on the floor, and they are also looking forward. Arms must be bilaterals, stuck to the body, and the palms facing forward too. This is one of the most common positions. Other positions are prone, that is when the body is facing down, and supine, that consists with the body looking forward, like the opposite of prone. The body is divided in the head that contains the brain and the face, the upper limb that is all the trunk, the abdomen, and the lower limb that is where the legs are found. Well, now that we are done with this, we will move to the directional terms that describe different parts of the body where are found. First, we start with the superior. This describes how something is upper than another, like the heart, which is superior to the liver. Then we have the inferior, which is the opposite of the superior. This example could be the liver is inferior to the heart. The anterior is another one that is found in the ventral, that is near to or at the front of the body, is anterior. The posterior is the opposite of anterior. It is found in the dorsal. The medial is near to the midline, which is an imaginary line that divides the body into equal parts that is left and right. An example could be the ulna is medial to the radius. The lateral is far from the midline. The intermediate is between two structures. The ipsilateral is on the same side of the body of another structure. The contralateral is the opposite to ipsilateral, is the opposite side of the body from another structure. The proximal is near to the attachment, like the humerus is proximal to the radius. The distal is far from the attachment, like the phalanges are distal to the carpals. The superficial is toward or on the surface of the body, like the ribs are superficial to the lungs. And finally, the deep is the contrary to superficial, that is away from the surface of the body. In this case, ribs are deep than skin.
Now we will talk about an analysis of risk factors to develop skin cancer and osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a name for a bone disease which results in the loss of very low production of bone, making you weak and very prone to breaking or fracturing your bones doing activities where you would normally be perfectly fine. In extreme cases of osteoporosis, you can even break bones by simply sneezing. It isn't possible to determine whether you'll get osteoporosis or not, but there are risks you can avoid. Diet, for example, can greatly affect. If you don't consume enough calcium or vitamin D, you aren't giving your bones what they need to be strong. Not doing exercise also increases risks. high-impact exercises such as running, weightlifting, or hiking contribute to bone health. Smoking, cigarettes, and drinking alcohol excessively also greatly increase your risk, since both of them can lead to bone loss and high fracture risks. Medications such as corticosteroids or anti-seizure and cancer medicines can also promote osteoporosis. There are also factors that you can't really control. If you are female, Caucasian, Asian, have a small frame, are of more age, or your parents have it, you have a greater risk. As for skin cancer, it is an unusual growth of skin cells, found mainly on skin that is regularly exposed to the sun. There are 3 main kinds: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. Basal carcinoma tends to happen on the areas that are exposed to the sun the most often, like in the neck or the face. Squamous carcinoma also happens due to sun exposure, and it is therefore found in ears, neck, and face. But for people with a darker complexion, it is more likely to happen in other parts of the body. As for melanoma, it happens anywhere on the skin regardless of sun exposure. It is the most dangerous of the 3 categories. It has the capability to kill within a couple of months. Most of the damage and cancer risks happen due to excessive exposure to ultraviolet light, which you can find in normal sunlight, but also in tanning beds. But you have an even higher risk if you have fair skin or a tendency to get sunburnt, or if you're out in the sun too much, if you live in a place of higher altitude or with lots of sun, if you have any moles with irregularities, if you have a family or personal history, a weak immune system, or are exposed to radiation. To protect yourself from cancer, the biggest help is using sunblock constantly. But you can also try to avoid the sun when it is strongest, wear clothing that covers you, avoid tanning beds, and medications that make you sensitive to sunlight.
Body tissue are similar cells that work together and make a function. And there are 4 types of tissue: the epithelial, the connective, the muscular, and nervous tissue. The epithelial or epithelium tissue carry all cells and form a continuous layer that faces in the body surface, a body cavity, the lumen of an internal organ, or a tubular duct that receives all secretions. It also has the epithelium tissue, the simple epithelium, that has a single layer of cells that function in diffusion, osmosis, filtration, secretion, and absorption. The secretion is the production and release of substances such as mucus, sweat, or enzymes. Absorption is the intake of fluids or other substances such as digested food from the intestinal tract. The connective tissue is most abundant and distributes tissues in our body, can support other tissues, protects the internal organs, and is the major system to transport the blood. It doesn't occur in the body's surface. There are different types of this tissue: the loose, the dense, adipose, reticular, cartilage, bone, blood, and lymph. The next one is the muscle tissue that uses ATP to generate force. This causes obviously the movement of our body that generates heat, and there are 3 types: the smooth, the cardiac, and the skeletal muscle tissue. This one, the smooth, is an involuntary control. The cardiac, involuntary control, and the skeletal muscle tissue is an involuntary control. The last one is the nervous. They have 2 cell types, neurons and neuroglia, and it's located on the brain and spinal cord. It passes all the information in our body to our brain. The neuron have 3 parts: the cell body, an axon, and the dendrites. The cell body contains most of cytoplasm and the nucleus of the neuron. The neuroglia has more than half the volume of the brain. Then we have the skeletal muscle. is in charge of make the movements of the body with help of the muscle and bones, and it protects the organs and supports the body weight.
Feedback system. Feedback is a situation when the output of a loop impacts or influences the stimulus. Homeostasis is the mechanism that enables us to keep our internal environment relatively constant, not too hot or too cold, not too hungry or tired. The level of energy that an organism needs to maintain homeostasis depends on the type of an organism, as well as the environment it inhabits. Feedback loops can also occur to a larger degree. At the ecosystem level, a form of homeostasis is maintained. For example, the cycle of predator and prey populations. A boom in prey population will mean more food for predators, which will increase predator numbers. This will then lead to overpredation, and the prey population will again decline. The predator population will decline in response, releasing the pressure on the prey and allowing it to bounce back. Positive feedback loops are unstable systems because a change in an input causes response that produce continuous change in the same direction. The term positive feedback is typically used as long as a variable has an ability to amplify itself, even if the components of a loop, receptor and control center, and effector are not easily identifiable. In most cases, positive feedback is harmful, but there are a few instances where positive feedback, when used in limited fashion, contributes to normal function. A good example would be blood clotting. When tissue is torn or injured, a chemical is released. This chemical causes platelets in the blood to activate. Once these platelets have activated, they release more chemical which signals more platelets to activate until the wound is clotted. Negative feedback. A negative feedback loop occurs in biology when the product of a reaction leads to a decrease in the reaction. In this way, a negative feedback loop brings a system closer to a target of stability or homeostasis. For example, blood pressure. The blood pressure needs to remain high enough to pump blood to all parts of the body, but not so high as to cause damage while doing so. While the heart is pumping, baroreceptors detect the pressure of the blood going through the arteries. If the pressure is too high or too low, a chemical is sent to the brain via the glossopharyngeal nerve. The brain then sends a chemical sign to the heart to adjust the rate of pumping. If blood pressure is low, heart rate increases, while if blood pressure is high, heart rate decreases. Why is feedback so important? Well, without feedback, homeostasis cannot occur. This means that an organism loses the ability to self-regulate its body. Negative feedback mechanisms are more common in homeostasis, but positive feedback loops are also important. Changes in feedback loops can lead to various issues, including diabetes mellitus.
Now we're going to talk about how to prevent future chronic diseases. To prevent future chronic diseases, you may have a healthy life. You must avoid tobacco use because it affects your lungs and it lowers the physical performance, and it retains liquids. This makes it harder to lose weight. The use of cigarettes causes lung diseases such as chronic bronchitis and emphysema, and it is also known to worsen asthma symptoms in adults and children. More than 90% of all deaths from chronic pulmonary obstruction diseases are attributable to smoking. Also, smoking tobacco is cause of cancer, so this really affects your health. You also need to avoid drinking too much alcohol. Excessive alcohol consumption increases the production of gastric acid, which can lead to serious pathologies. If you stop drinking before there is already irreversible damage, you can avoid diseases such as stomach cancer and esophagitis. And you will protect your heart, you will lose weight, you will improve your sexual activity, among other things. You must do exercise. Practicing sport or do exercise is really good to prevent chronic diseases because it controls weight, It improves your mood, so you do activities happier and without stress. It improves your stamina and muscle endurance. But also, you need to have a healthy diet. It's not only just doing exercise, you have to eat healthy. You need to eat fruits and vegetables, a really good portion of meal, fish, or chicken, because this is protein. Also, carbohydrates that are bread, tortilla, pasta, and rice. You must eat based on the plate of good eating. You will prevent many diseases by this way. And finally, go check yourself occasionally with a doctor to see if you don't have any hereditary disease. Because sometimes we have hereditary disease by our grandfather, our father, our uncle, something like that. So you better check yourself to prevent all these kind of things. If you do all these things, you really have a really good life. You will prevent the chronic diseases, and you have an excellent endurance physically. You will see better and all that kind of stuffs.
Osteoporosis is a chronic disease that it happened all over the world. It's very dangerous, so we decided to make a plan to how prevent osteoporosis. First, we start with a very important diet. It has to have nutrients and the adequate calcium quantities. It is very important to maintain the adequate supply of vitamin D, have a regular weight by doing some activities, don't smoke, definitely avoid drinking alcohol. Another chronic disease is diabetes, which is very common. It is caused by the increase in insulin in the blood and can lead very serious complications. A plan to prevent diabetes will be to start doing cardiovascular exercises, such as running, swimming, so as not to have too much sugar. Every day practice at least 1 hour of this exercise. After doing Pilates, to work more muscles of the body and not just burn calories. I'm going to help the body to use the energy you are consuming. The diet is very important. Try to eat a diet not based on sugars or carbohydrates. It's best to eat fruits and vegetables, like apples that are natural sugar and spinach. So the body nourishes itself well with natural things. You should also drink plenty of water, at least 3 liters a day. And finally, change your habits. If you usually eat a lot of sweets, candy, cravings, it would be better to reduce the amount to maximum one every few days. So you will keep your body with the indicated sugar and no more, reducing the risk of diabetes. And that was all for the podcast of today. I hope you learn a lot and have a nice day. Don't forget to eat healthy